We have multiple Leafs updates to go over today as things have taken another wild turn. And for the first time, we have a big update surrounding Anthony Stolarz. We're going to dive into that, as well as discuss a scary update surrounding OEL, as well as Craig Berube coming out and revealing the truth now behind whether or not he's going to make lineup changes ahead of game number 5. Ladies and gentlemen, a ton to go over today, but before we get into it, folks, you guys have been fantastic. If you're a part of the 71% who aren't subscribed to the channel, we're getting very close to 18,000 subscribers. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. You guys have been beasts. Thank you very much for the support. We're seeing all the comments, and it's been it's nice now to have playoff hockey, of course, but also with all the different things that are going on, the outside distractions, the conspiracies, all these different things. Darius, we have some updates to go over today regarding the game tomorrow, because despite all the weird things that are happening behind the scenes, the Leafs still have a hockey game to play tomorrow, and this series is still very, very winnable. And it all starts with tomorrow night's game. They had a couple days off and a ton of things to go over today. And we have an update surrounding Anthony Stolarz for the first time, a significant one, since his injury. And you can see this here. Anthony Stolarz is back on the ice ahead of the Leafs skate this morning for the first time since the injury in Game 2. Stolarz did not make the trip to Florida with the team for the 2 losses last week. Now, Darius, this is pretty good news, but don't get too excited because he's not, going to be playing tomorrow. He hasn't, he wasn't practicing a part of the optional practice, but he was getting in work with the goalie coach, but he's not skating with the main group for the team's optional practice this morning. This screams to me that Stolarz, if they advance, they will be playing what seems to be Carolina with the way that Washington's playing. But it seems the Leafs, if they advance, I would assume Stolarz would be available then. But the way Joseph Woll played last game, I mean, very interesting decision they're going to be forced into here. But regardless of that, most importantly, he seems to be doing a lot better from his concussion, and he's back on the ice, so that is great news. But it's going to be very interesting if Woll has a very bad game in game 5.
Yeah, this is great news. And the last update that we had was that he wasn't skating yet. So obviously he's back on the ice. He's feeling better, which is a step obviously in the right direction. And not even in the right direction. It means that he should be ready to go pretty soon. And would you take Joseph Woll out? I'm not sure, right, at this point in this series, because he has, put together 2 pretty good games. Obviously in game 3, there was a stinker goal in there for sure. But game 4, he was great. He held them in that game for sure. But Stolarz, I don't even know if he's going to be ready for the end of this series if it goes 6 or 7. Well, obviously it's going 6, but if it goes 7 games at this point. So I think that's an interesting decision they're going to have to make when the time comes. I don't know if they're even going to have to make the decision, right? If the Leafs do advance to the 3rd round, really depends on who they're playing. If they're playing Carolina, maybe you do want Stolarz in there, right? Maybe you just put him in. Personally, I would put Stolarz in there as soon as he's healthy because, moving the puck, all those other things, what he brings to the team, how calm he is, how poised he is with the puck, making saves in the net, it flows through the rest of the team. So I put him in there immediately. I love Joseph Woll. I've been a Joseph Woll supporter the entire time, right? I'm a big Joseph Woll guy, but it's what the team needs and what, is called for. So as soon as he's healthy and he can go, he should be in the net. And whether that is in this series or, the first game of the next series, we'll see. But again, maybe it depends on the opponent as well in terms of the coaching staff and what they want to do. But anyway, nonetheless, it's a good sign to see him back on the ice, and it looks like he's progressing and should return soon.
Yeah, let us know what your thoughts are. At the same time, Woll has now had, weeks, I guess days especially. He's had a while now to prepare and get used to the Florida Panthers style of play, and he's gotten better as the series has went on. So I don't know if they're going to bring Stolarz back. Even if he's healthy, I think the Leafs are going to keep Joseph Woll in. He's familiar with how the Florida Panthers are playing now. He had his by far best game of his season in game 4 and even game 3, aside from some lucky bounces. He could have easily had a great game there. Yes, of course, you would have liked him to win the game there for the Leafs. There's always going to be a couple games where your goalie hopefully wins on your road to the cup and steals a game for you. Game 3 would have been that for Joseph Woll with some unlucky bounces. I don't think they're going to take him out, and I'm huge on Stolarz, but he's been sitting now for a while, and not only sitting, he hasn't been skating. So I think they're going to go with the surefire option in Woll, because if Stolarz comes back and he looks very rough out there, then the narrative immediately flips to why did you change it from something that was working. So I think that's the route they're going to go. But speaking of changes, no changes to the forward group, which is very surprising. So the same lines as we've been seeing the entire go. They're keeping Järnkrok in. They're keeping Max Pacioretty in. And Robertson, Kemp, and Reeves remain on the outside looking in here. And you will notice Yanni Hakanpää is in for OEL, which we'll dive into in a minute. But first, Darius, no changes on the side of Craig Berube, and we know, and we have a couple of different articles that we're going to be discussing here, and I guess reports regarding this. After the game, 4, he came out and said, we're going to be looking at all changes. They're not going to be rocking any changes, and I understand this. I didn't think they were necessarily going to do it. I said that in the stream, and they probably should, but I don't think they will. They're confident with the team they have, and I think they're going to go down with the ship here at this point.
Yeah, I think this might end up proving to be the right choice at the end of the day. I mean, A lot of people, even myself, were calling for Robertson to come in Game 6 against the Ottawa Senators, and he didn't, and it was the right call because Pacioretty scored the series winning goal. So I think this will end up proving to be the right decision. And obviously, Hakanpää is just there for now because OEL should play tomorrow. I think he's going to play through whatever he's dealing with, which is, it looks like it's an illness. But yeah, I think that it's going to be the correct course of action. Why would you mess up any of the chemistry that is going right now? These are the guys who have battled through this series. The only change I would maybe make at this point, which could mess up a lot of things actually, would be David Kampf for Yarncroke. At this point, that would be the only change I would make. But then, Kampf has to go center, so it could mess up a little bit of, the dynamic right now. So maybe you just don't make any moves. And we don't know if they're going to make any moves yet. They could still make a move, tomorrow morning skate. Maybe they're running a practice today, seeing, what he liked, what he didn't like, and things that he wants to change. Craig Berube, this is, and then maybe tomorrow morning skate is going to be like, hey, this person's actually, they are going to play. But for me, to insert a guy like Nick Robertson into the series at this point, not a good idea. And I think most Leaf fans could agree with that. So Pacioretty, I think, is going to stay in here. But again, I would only maybe make one move. So they're probably going to stick with the same lineup, but I wouldn't put it past Berube to make a last minute change tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to make any changes. I mean, maybe they do tomorrow, but at this point of the playoffs, that's not usually the way they go about it.
Yeah,
However, I'm with you. I think David Kampf should come in for Calle Yarncroke and just make it work. And one of the reasons that I think they should do that is to give Austin, and this might be a hot take, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Give Austin Matthews some time off of the penalty kill because David Kampf is a great penalty killer, which will preserve some of his energy. And then we also get to see him as soon as they hopefully kill a penalty, have him and JT come back out firing off of the bench. And that's something that, I mean, regardless of if, Matthews has been a very good, penalty killer. He's been a good, obviously, two-way player this season. But David Kampf is a very good, you could call him a PK specialist. That's what he's been for most of his Leafs tenure. And then if you get Austin Matthews some rest there off of the PK, it might help him towards his inevitable, hopefully, snapping of his goalless drought.
Yeah, I think that he's got to get going, and he does play a lot, right? But he makes a lot of money. He should be playing a lot. You should be playing in all situations. This is what good players do for sure around the league, right? So I think that's a good point. I think if David Kampf were to come in, Matthews would play less. You can play him more 5-on-5. He wouldn't be as, fatigued throughout the game. You're also heading into, this is something to be wary of too. You're heading into the second half of the series, right? Games 5, 6, and 7. Penalties are going to be hard to come by unless they're absolutely like puck over the glass or anything absurd, right? So as the series goes on, especially in 5, 6, and for sure 7, there's going to be no penalties, right? So maybe that's something they're looking at too, where yes, we could give them a rest, but we're past the point of no return as well. So I'm sure they're considering everything at this point because it is a good point. But I think at the end of the day, they'll probably make no lineup changes. They'll probably just rock with the same group they have been because that's the group that got them there. And, if nobody's hurt or injured, which we'll touch on, but they're just going to keep rolling with them.
Yeah, a couple other things here. Craig Berube, regarding OEL, says he's sick and felt it best to keep him off the ice today. And interesting. Stay tuned for some things regarding that. But Craig Berube said he's not worried about William Nylander being dissuaded by Matthew Tkachuk's chirping at the end of Game 4. He probably didn't hear him. He doesn't hear me. So Berube's hilarious, and I think it's times like this where you're happy and you're appreciative of having him as a coach, keeping everybody calm. I mean, the series of 2-2, they lost 2 in a row. It's the Florida Panthers at the end of the day. They're a very, very good team. Let's not forget this particular incident because this is going to be the biggest thing heading into tomorrow night's game. You had Matthew Nyes stepping up for William Nylander, telling him to fight me. So, Darius, it's going to be an interesting little bit there. And one final thing as well. Joseph Wall was asked if he's seen the Wonderwall. I said, yeah, I saw. Nyes showed me those. I like Wonderwall. And hopefully he can continue being a fantastic goalie and being a wall in the net there. Any final thoughts here before I wrap up? OEL is sick, and hopefully he'll be good to go. He will be for tomorrow's game.
Yeah, it looks like Nyes is the guy that shows everybody on the team like memes and stuff and TikToks and all that. So that's pretty funny. But like you said, I mean, Tkachuk was pointing at Nylander. I mean, Nylander's the one guy that I don't think you can get off his game, right, with stuff like that in the entire league. So we'll see how that works out. And Nyes obviously over his shoulder asking Tkachuk, why don't you go me instead? So much like he did last year in Boston, where he was shoving Pasternak around, and he was like, hey, why don't you go me instead? So Nyes is going to be right there. Nyes is a big boy too. So I'm not worried about any of that. I think it's going to be a very competitive Game 5, that's for sure. But again, this was all like mind game stuff, and you know what Tkachuk is about, right? So if you're Nylander, like I'm sure it does not bother him whatsoever. So it's going to be a very competitive end of the series here, especially as we head into Game 5 tomorrow.
Yeah, let us know down below your thoughts are on this. Ton of crazy news coming out. We're going to keep you up to date. Stay tuned for another video later tonight. See you guys later.